You're listening to the Yin and Yang Show, a marketing and sales conversation with Lindsay Kelly and Brian Signorelli. Strategic and tactical advice about inbound sales and marketing.
Hey, welcome back to the Yin and Yang Show. Thank you for joining us again for another week of scintillating marketing and sales conversations. I'm Lindsay Kelly from Prospect Builder, and I'm joined by my buddy Sig from HubSpot. What's up, Sig?
Hey, Lindsay. How's it going? I'm excited as I've ever been in the past probably 6 months because we just hit the summer solstice, and we're in the thick of it now. The cold weather is gone from Boston. It's nice and steamy, almost 90 here today. I'm excited about that, and excited to be kicking off something special with you today.
Yes, I am excited as well. Not for the same reasons you are. I am in the depths of wedding hell. And I live in South Florida. And so for us, this is like not season. Like I love, November. But anyway, I digress. So today, Sig and I are kicking off the summer how-to series. And we're going to go through how-tos, do's and don'ts. And these are going to be quick hits, guys. This is going to be 10 minutes, really practical stuff. Sig's obviously going to handle the sales stuff. I'm going to handle marketing stuff, really practical, real-world stuff. And we're going to kick it off today with common sales misconceptions with Sig. And we're going to do our best to really hold it to 10 minutes because, it's summertime. You guys got stuff to do. So get ready for the whole summer being 10 minutes of quick hits. And then there we go. Take it away, Sig.
Awesome. So one of the things I was thinking about, it's been on my mind, and I'm going to talk about for the next 10 minutes is competitive selling. And how to be an effective inbound seller in a competitive situation. So I just want to go through a couple of things that I've seen as common misconceptions that salespeople tend to have, and this is probably good knowledge for marketers too, as they support salespeople to go through any competitive selling situations, or thinking about the right kind of messaging, the right collateral, etc., to help them win deals. So I'm going to go through some common misconceptions about competitive deals, and then I'm also going to go through just a few things to digest or think about when it comes to the do's and don'ts of competitive selling. And this is based on my experience as a rep and as a sales manager for the past 3+ years now. So I think the first thing, when it comes to the misconceptions about competitive deals, one of the very first things that I would, point out is that oftentimes sales reps think that, this is the first time that a prospect is buying your product or your service. Now, in the copier dealer world, it's probably something you very rarely have ever run into. And in fact, I think it's a good thing to point out is that, in general, if you look at the total sales volume of kind of everything that is sold and all the transactions that happen on a global basis, business to business, about 70% of things that businesses buy are repeat purchases. So, for example, in the software world, oftentimes we think, this is the first time they're buying HubSpot or marketing automation tools. Not so fast. Marketing automation has actually been around for more than a decade, and oftentimes people are, looking to replace an incumbent provider. So don't think that this is their first rodeo. The second thing that I think about, and this kind of goes in line with the first, is that some reps think that you should never enter into a competitive deal. Bunch of different schools of thought on this. I personally disagree with that. I think that if you're truly an inbound seller and you are helping somebody, then one of the things you should be able to do is help somebody evaluate multiple platforms, even if they ultimately choose not to use your own. And I say platform in a software sense, but this is for really any product or service. Now, does that mean that you should spend hours upon hours upon hours helping them do their due diligence against, businesses that are not yours? Probably not. But can you spare 30 or 45 minutes? Yes. And should you? Yes, you should. The third thing I'd point out too is that, sometimes people think that in a competitive selling situation, a prospect is just price shopping. That's not necessarily true. It's actually a pretty good buying sign that someone is asking pricing questions or is considering making a switch from one product or service they have to the next. Price is one of many factors that goes into a purchasing discussion or a buying decision rather. And so don't be put off if somebody, wants to talk about price early on. And in fact, price is typically one of the very first things that a buyer wants to talk about when they're going through discovery. Whereas for a sales rep, it's one of the last things they want to talk about. They always say, I want to add value first. I want to, demonstrate that we have so much value here that doesn't matter what the price is. Kind of just throw that out. And, if someone asks a question about price, you should be talking about price. Don't feel uncomfortable talking about money.
Should you bring it up first though, before they do, to kind of nip it in the bud?
Sometimes, it depends. You should have some sort of a qualifying framework where you have a sense of how much, or what the range is of cost to work with your business. And so, for example, if you have a prospect that's on the very low range of your acceptable kind of buyer profile or buyer persona, and for a fact, based on, sales history, that you often lose deals due to price. It was too expensive for a smaller company, for example, then it probably is something you should bring up fairly early. Like with HubSpot, there's a lot of solo entrepreneurs that will, get excited about using our software and want to use it. Today we actually do have a way for businesses like that to use our platform, not the whole platform, but parts of it at a reasonable cost, like the starter products, for example. But a couple of years ago we didn't have those, and so the entry point was minimum $4,000 or $5,000. And to some people out there, that sounds like less than nothing. To other people out there, that sounds like the biggest investment they've ever made in their business. It's all about perspective, So, but to those solo entrepreneurs, that was actually a fairly large investment for them, or they felt like it was anyway. And so that is typically one of the things we would bring up early on in the discovery process.
Okay.
So those are the few things I point out. Just don't think this is the first time someone's buying your product or service. Don't necessarily walk away from a competitive deal. I just think that kind of, it's not helpful. It sends the wrong message. And then the third is, don't assume that someone's just price shopping. I think I'm coming up to about my 10 minutes, so I want to be mindful of that. Should I go through maybe
I'm impressed.
Should I go through my do's or my don'ts? I don't think we have time for both, but which ones do you think? Maybe the don'ts.
I was going to say don'ts, because it's something that I think as sales reps, sometimes, there are certain habits that we may not even realize exist, that we're like, oh wait, I shouldn't be doing that. No, don't. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do that.
Okay. So here are a few things. Number one rule, you should know this for any experienced rep. I hope this is common knowledge for you. The very first thing that you should not do in a competitive selling situation is badmouth your competition. By literally talking about your competition at all, you are giving them free publicity. You are putting, there's a book about conversational hypnosis, and one of the strategies that a bunch of people use is using the same words over and over and over again. Same idea with your competitors. Every single time you mention your competitor, even if it's in a negative context, that's actually putting that competitor's name in your prospect's mind. So in general, don't badmouth your competition. It's never going to serve you well. And in fact, if a sales rep were badmouthing competition to me, that would be my number one trigger as to making sure that I go and research that competitor. Because I say, geez, sounds like that sales rep's scared of losing. It must have something really good that the sales rep doesn't want me to know about. So it's never going to help you to badmouth the competition. So just don't do it. The second is, don't negotiate prematurely. I find that people often, again, partially because buyers want to jump into price very early on. Oftentimes sales reps will start negotiations just to close a deal, just to try to win that away from a competitor. But guess what you're doing is, if you negotiate prematurely, before you understand the real value that someone can get out of working with your business, you could actually be setting off a price war. And then it's theoretically a race to the bottom. So I've unfortunately seen this happen, where reps will kind of start negotiating midway through an exploratory process, just to kind of try to take the competitor out of the equation. And then that prospect goes to the competitor and says, hey, HubSpot's offering me X. What can you offer me? Competitor comes back 10% below what we offered, and then we have to go 10% below that. And then it's just this race to the bottom. All values eroded. Everyone's pissed off. It's a lose-lose all around. It's not good. So don't start negotiating prematurely. And then the last thing I guess I'd talk about is, it's like a mashup of two things. It's basically, try to avoid selling. I mean, and granted, there are some industries that maybe this is, harder to stick to. But I think the concept of what I'm getting at is try to sell on value and sell and reserve selling on price. I mean, basically, when you sell on price alone, what you are saying is that you are a commodity and that there is nothing that your business does that differentiates itself from its competition. In a copier dealer world, you might be thinking, well, we kind of are a commodity. Like, copiers and printers, like, they're like relatively all similar and whatever. I'd say, I challenge you to think way harder about that, because I'd be willing to bet that your support team and your services team members that go out and work with your customers, they, at a minimum, no offense to you sales reps, I'd like to think that you are also a differentiator, but I guarantee that your support and services teams, field engineers that are going out and fixing things, that is a differentiation. So don't forget it. Don't back down on price unless you've got a really, really bona fide reason to do so. So that said, I'll wrap it up there. Obviously, I have more thoughts on this, but I thought that'd be a little snippet for today.
No, that's fantastic and perfect. And hopefully, like this little bite-size, summer how-to series is going to be beneficial for the folks out there with less time during the summer hours to devote to us. So, as always, you can find Sig at Inbound Seller on the Twitters. You can find me at LV Kelly. And folks, until next time, keep the conversation going.
Keep talking.
You've been listening to the Yin and Yang Show, a marketing and sales conversation with Lindsay Kelly and Brian Signorelli. Join us online at yinandyang.fm.